Hello guys, welcome back to the channel where I have perpetual care of another toddler. Loki is supposed to be out of the house. He's supposed to be gone because he didn't want to help, remember? And he's responded in the toddler way he has of throwing stuff. And these grapes on this altar will either fall straight down, and I will discount it as vibration or something else, or they get thrown further away from the altar, and that's fun. And I heard those noises last night and hearing weird stuff today. I'm like, well, I know I'm not just instantly going crazy, so I know it's Loki showing his discomfort and displeasure, and he wants his altar back. And I'm really exhausted physically, emotionally, everything today, and I can't deal. I can't even today. And so I go to the UU church, and I look up something about fear, and I listen to a sermon. He talks about, some fear can be considered holy and good if it's going to preserve your life. Like, we should be afraid of things that could kill us. But, some fear is just needless, and we end up finding the things we were so afraid of, they weren't bad at all. Like, you dread a meeting, and it goes really well, or you dread going on this trip because you just didn't want to go and it ends up being wonderful, or you dread a interview and it's great, or any of the other stuff we thought we have anxiety and fear because we don't want to go do it, and it turns out to be really simple, and we even say to the person, I don't know what I was worried about, you know and because our fears build up all these challenges and hurdles, especially if we don't quite understand the process that we'll be going through. Like, we're not quite sure what will happen in the interview, or we're not quite sure what will happen during whatever. And as I'm listening to a sermon about fear, I'm thought, well, that's pretty good. And I decide, well, I gotta take out the trash. And I feel like a horrible human being because a couple of Loki's temporary tchotchkes go in. And, these are only temporary things for him, and a lot of them were messed up, and I knew he had lost interest in them anyhow. You just kind of know when something's fallen out of his favor. And he knew that too. But last night he was hysterical, not over the things really, but over the idea of being thrown out. And Loki can't use his words well. I've often told him to calm down and use his words. For God that supposedly has a silver tongue, he gets upset and hysterical and just starts blabbering things at you, and you're looking at him trying to make sense out of it. And he's showing his will by throwing grapes and by this little pout. Like, you get this mental image of this little fox sitting on the altar pouting and frowning down at you. And I thought, as I'm coming back in, I know these circular stories I tell. Well, I always feared that my gods wouldn't love me, especially Loki when I had nothing left to give, no candles and such, because that's all they love me for. I think for me as a Catholic, it starts in your childhood, because God sure seems to like money, right? Instead of telling you it's just to run the church, which you could agree or disagree with. Parents usually say, oh, God loves a cheerful giver, or it goes to these people over here, or whatever, right? It's never just, we straight up have bills to pay. Every so often we would have a cool priest that say, hey, we have to keep the lights on. I have to eat, these vestments aren't free. So, every so often they would tell you the truth that if you want to keep coming to this temple, you have to, give money so we can run it. That would be fine. But for them to tell you that God needs the money, all of a sudden God's not quite all powerful, right? So that kind of sets you up to have the idea that if you run out of money to give God, or you run out of things to give God, especially if you grow up Catholic with statues, um, God or the angels or saints or someone are going to drop their favor. And a lot of people carry it into paganism, and they will tell you things like, if you don't have this to give, you're not going to get great results, and that's bullshit. It's like saying, and I can tell you from experience, I don't care if you got a birthday candle that you didn't even pay for because you got it free somewhere, or you got a $200 hand poured jar candle, your results are going to be the same. They are. I know there's this big lie in paganism that if you can throw more money at the offering, the gods have more to work with. That's not it. You probably could have taken the $200 from the hand poured candle and put it towards your problem, but you know what I mean. There's this idea that bigger is better, and it's in all religions. There are people that work with Ogu that think that depending on the way they're working with them, that they have to go out and buy these huge iron cauldrons that like they can barely, bring them in, and they're so huge, and while they spent all this money, he's going to give them more, right? And he laughs because it's not the size that matters, and it's not the amount of money you throw at an altar or you throw at offerings. Most of the stuff on my altars we either got on sale or has been in my family for like decades. So I really didn't pay too much for it. Like some stuff cost a dime, like some stuff might have cost a whole dollar, but it's not expensive stuff, you know. And even when I have had more expensive stuff to put on altars, I haven't had an uptick in fortune. But as I was coming back in, am I still doing this circular thing? I'm sorry, I'm so damn tired. As I'm coming back in, I think, well, Loki's not going to love me now because there goes his stuff. He still has a ton of stuff, but I have nothing left to give him. Just some days you're really down, especially if you have lack of sleep and you think, well, I will never have a chance to ever get him anything to put on his altar ever again. And I felt this warm, unconditional love, this warm, unconditional, supportive love. And it was definitely a masculine energy. And I'm feeling this warm, unconditional love. Like I was getting the sense of, I love you. You don't have to give me things. And I'm like, Jesus? Buddha? Who is this? It was, I love you. You don't have to give me things. Who are you? I haven't met a god like you before. Usually, they're like candle, water, candle, incense, rare. And it was, I love you. You don't have to give me things. I just want to love you and I want you to love me. Who the hell are you? And it's Loki. And I'm like, the hell happened to you? What happened to the god that was crying last night because his stuff was going? But it seems to have flipped a switch for him because now I'm getting this warm, buttery, unconditional love because he's taken back over his altar, even though there's stuff for the others here. I don't think he cares. And I'm getting this warm, buttery, unconditional love. And I think he realizes that, a lot of humans fare once we stop, especially pagans. If we stop buying books and we stop buying candles and we stop buying incense and crystals and all this other shit, the gods are going to walk away because we're not a good pagan anymore. You can't buy God's love. It's Wicca 101. It's what you should have been taught day one. You cannot buy God's love. It's why I always tell you guys you really truly do not need altars. Because that you can't buy that God's love. You might go out and spend top end money and get statues that were thousands of dollars and hand carved by some remote aesthetic somewhere, and $100 thousand. You can get candles that are over $1,000. I've seen them. I think like 2,000 is like the upper end. $2,000 candles and like all this other stuff. If that god doesn't want you, they're not even going to look at it. And you're burning these costly incenses. And say you spent like 100,000. Let's just say you went nuts and you spent 100,000 on setting up the ultimate altar. They're still not going to look at you. Where if they want to work with you, you don't need a thing. You don't need to even have a piece of paper to give them. And it's a thing of they want to love you. And if you'll settle into that love, then all of a sudden your fear and anxiety of not having enough to offer goes away. And their fear and anxiety of being replaced goes away. So now he's really calm and content, and I don't even recognize him because I'm used to him pinging off the walls and going crazy, but it's like it flipped a switch for him, that seeing that I figured all he loved was things and not me, that seems to have flipped a switch for him, and he seems to have reset himself. And of course, I have a very bad habit now that we have a reason to celebrate. I want to go hit the DQ or something, but I know we shouldn't. COVID. And also, we are trying to be careful with money, but we will find a way to celebrate around here, I suppose. And there's a thunderstorm coming, a brewing. We're gonna have thunderstorms for weeks now, but it's like a switch flip for him. He realized that I thought all he loved was the things and not me. And I could never buy him enough, and he needed a never-ending supply. And when he saw that wasn't the case, it's this warm, buttery love. I will let you guys know how long this lasts, but I just figured I'd let you know he's not only back in, he's like being the warm, buttery love god. I'm gonna see how long this lasts because this is really nice. If he can stay like this is great. So, the warm, buttery love god, because that's what it feels like. It feels so warm and gentle and loving and kind. And that's why I didn't recognize him. I'm like, who the hell are you? But he's like, I love you. So I don't know. I have no idea. I broke Loki. I broke Loki. I'm sorry. So if you guys like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye bye.